Okay, so we've looked at the employment visa and the business investment visa and the visas that exist for families. What happens if you get denied? And a lot of cases do get denied. There's no doubt about that. I've discovered down the years that people have their applications refused for very discrete reasons, and these are that the 3 pillars of approval are weak or are not there. The one-man business, for example, not having sufficient cash, not being able to show that, notwithstanding your earnestness, you haven't got the resources to allow the Immigration Department to be satisfied that this can be a sustainable business. Cases get denied on security grounds. As I mentioned earlier on, the less than welcome investment in the context of an unprovable business model for a business that really looked like a pyramid scheme. Cases get denied because they were never going to get approved, like the Chinese mainland resident that makes an application and hasn't lived outside of China for 1 year immediately prior to submitting his application. And cases get denied because, frankly, they just haven't got a very good record with the Immigration Department. See, it's not often appreciated that as a foreign national, you're just a foreigner, right? You may like the place and you hang around Hong Kong a lot and you shuttle backwards and forwards between Shenzhen and Hong Kong and spend 1.5 years as a visitor, and you feel that you put roots down and you're kind of part of the social fabric. But from an immigration perspective, if you're just a foreigner, you've got no rights here. And so, after a certain amount of time, people make applications for an employment visa and they don't get approved. So that's a disappointment. So they go off and they procure another job offer and they make another application for an employment visa and that doesn't get approved. And meanwhile, perhaps 9, 12 months have gone by and they think, well, I'll start my own business. And so, put together the essence of an application plan and you file it down at the Immigration Department and 4 to 6 months later, that gets denied. And at some stage, the Immigration Department are going to say, well, hang on a minute, it's not costing you anything to make these applications. And our formal rules are that you need to make these applications before you arrive. And it's been, a privilege that we've afforded you each time you've presented yourself as a visitor to allow you to be in Hong Kong. But, at what point, not being a Hong Kong resident, not being a taxpayer, not contributing anything to Hong Kong in a meaningful sense, at what point do you expect us to carry on listening to your applications for residency when clearly we're saying to you, no, we don't want you here? And so you can make an application for an investment visa and you might get denied on the strength that you've had a really poor record of interactions with the Immigration Department in the past. So every time you make an application to the department, there's a file being built upon you. And so, because remember, it's part of the Security Bureau, so they know everything that's going on and they'll ask questions and they'll try and find out what's going on. And every set of representations that you make adds to the mosaic of who you are and your credibility as a visa applicant and as a potential resident as well. So if you've got a poor history of dealing with the Immigration Department, then you may get denied on the strength of that alone, simply because the Immigration Department don't want you to be a resident. And I've seen that happen enough times in the past to know that it's a very real risk. So, cases get denied because they haven't been prepared properly, they haven't attended a talk like this, so use resources like ours, they haven't understood what's actually required for approval. And it's easy to fall into that trap because you can go down to the Immigration Department, you go to the second floor, the information section there, and the officers are all nicely dressed and they're smiling and their customer service mandate is in full force. And you've got some questions, sure, this is the answer to the question. Information, yeah, this is the information you need. And you go away from that encounter and you think, wow, this is great. And you see all these other foreigners around Hong Kong and say, wow, they've all got visas, so it can't be that hard. And then they hear from some friends that they've gone through a process and that wasn't that difficult and it's just a question of filling the forms in and it's all not a big deal at all. But actually, as you've seen in terms of the business investment visa, there is a discrete set of approvability criteria that the Immigration Department expect to have present. And if you're not aware of what they are, then you can all too easily fall into the trap of telling the Immigration Department, effectively, things that are not going to serve your interests in terms of a possible approval. So it makes perfect sense to to be well prepared to make an application. Cases get denied because the Immigration Department have asked for documents and you haven't been able to deliver them. Cases get denied because the Immigration Department make their determinations on these applications on the strength of the paperwork that you put forward. So if they ask for something, give it to them. In fact, go the extra mile the whole time. And when our applications go into the department, usually the bundles are about this thick. We see applications that are being lodged at the same time as ours, and they're only this thick, but they've got a big smiling self-applicant behind it who hasn't really understood that it's not just a question of shuffling a few papers. You need to have a story. You need to carry the story. You need to tell your story and carry the argument for approval. And that requires a good set of documents to illustrate every single point that you want to make to give yourself a good shot at approval. But that's why cases get denied.